Again. Whoops.
That's a
All
good
right.
smooth start.
Okay, that's a smooth start. So we are live. Hello, everyone. It's another quick art talk time, and today we have a very special guest. We have a session with our great friend and great artist, Raphael Lacoste. So maybe just to show you the proof, I'm gonna actually turn off this display banner, and there you go. We can see Raphael face. Hello, man. It's super nice to have you. Amazing times. We had like last time we met, and I'm just super happy that we can do this stream through our Focal Point School channel, because we're gonna talk about art direction. Last week we have Jeremy Fenske, who was also recently became art director, and now you're gonna talk about your path as an art director for a whole huge fucking great franchise. So hello.
Yeah, fucking adventure, man.
The voice is on you. Hello, man. How's it going?
Hey, how are you doing?
We are good. We of course are all in very tough times, but just staying positive, keeping the smile on the face, and yeah, now we feel even better having you. So.
Yeah, we're all in the same boat. These times are like super weird. I'm telling to my kids, are you going through a real historical time? You will be able to tell stories to your kids and your grandkids. But it's not very funny, actually. It's an interesting experience, but it's a big challenge, I would say, for people like all these people who are not able to work anymore, who work in bars and restaurants, and we can really feel really lucky we're able to work from home, even if we can complain because network is not really good and we have issues with VPN and Citrix. But we are still very lucky to be able to still work and still, getting paid for the stuff we're making. So yeah, it's a weird time, but I'm there and happy to talk with you guys today.
Is everyone around you healthy?
Yeah, actually everyone is healthy. When we shut down the school here and also the office, we still had some time to go out, and now it's less permissive. I think now we have to be very careful. But I'm glad we have room, we have space for every single person in the house. So we are very lucky as well. My son can play video games in his bedroom. My daughter, she can draw in her bedroom. I can have I have my office. I don't have any loud noise of people playing online games next to me. So
Nice.
it's cool. It's cool. So, but yeah, let's start.
Yeah, let's dive in. And for those who you don't know, guys, if you didn't hear about Raphael Lacoste, and maybe you didn't, even the name Lacoste, it sounds like a brand, man. And if you didn't hear about him, it's you're a studio art director, being responsible for a whole franchise, Assassin's Creed. Me and Derek were both looking up to your works for years and years and years, even before we became concept artists. So just to give any newcomer here to our channel, to let them know, how much of a big shot you are. And let's maybe dive in a little bit how your path was. Was it skill? Was it a mixture of luck? What kind of characteristics do you need to have to achieve this amount of success?
So first, I would say it's not just a question of working and be able to work with people. It's also a question of being very demanding about your personal skills, your work, but also being lucky, as you were saying. Yes, you have to be lucky. It's like inspiration. Inspiration is not something that is really falling from the sky. It's not like a gift from God. Inspiration and talent. It's not something you just get, by doing nothing. It's just a question of, it's a question of passion and pursued interest in doing what you like to do. That's not the only thing. I could be still in Bordeaux in France, being maybe a level artist senior working for the video game industry. If I didn't have decided to open a website in 1999 on a website that was actually, it's funny, it was called artist.com, but it was not me. And then it became 3D Artists at this time. It's a pretty old website, and I was sharing some stuff I was doing in Softimage 3D back in the days. I'm a dinosaur.
So you started as a 3D artist?
Yes. I drew a lot when I was in school. When I was a kid, I was not listening to the teachers. I was all the time, drawing on this, on the school books. And
same story.
My parents were always, same story. So I was not very happy at school. I was always looking out, at the windows, and always hoping being somewhere else.
Me too.
But
my teacher used to say that I'm always on Mars.
Yeah, same. They would say on the moon, but that's pretty much the same. But I think I would prefer Mars. Actually, you were lucky. Moon is just dust and cold.
Well, we never know. We never know.
Yeah, but you mentioned
I'd
this.
love to go
You
there.
mentioned the school. Like, have you like participated like in any art school at the time, or you just basically were always like self-taught, and you basically like had like normal high school, and how was your this sort of like path from the beginning? Because I think this is what people might find interesting.
But that's actually a good question. So I was before learning 3D, I was mainly focusing on drawing, but also I went to the fine arts in France, where I learned how to use a camera. So I started as more like a photographer. So I was working for a theater company, and also working on my degree at the fine arts, but mainly focusing on lighting and cameras, and learning how to develop photos and work in the lab. So that was a very traditional background, but also very helpful, because it really helped me to nail composition, lighting, how to deal with different lenses. And that was a very good, I would say, knowledge to start to learn 3D. So when I finished the fine arts, I didn't really find myself as being an artist doing stuff for galleries. You have the same kind of, this kind of, it's not a question of traditional art, but it's more like trying to fit in this kind of contemporary art scene. I was not feeling really comfortable about like making video performance, doing contemporary photography,
or vomiting.
Man, vomit on canvas.
That's the thing, because I guess you sort of like appreciated the craft, like being good at something, and I guess like we all agree on that, because in our industry, even though you have like so many tools these days, you have 3D, you have photographs, you have like Zebra, sculpting, whatever, you still have to have like a good sense of like shapes and motion and dynamics and design. Basically sensibility has to be there, like and you said that you are not you're not gifted from the beginning. You have to have this sort of like sensibility. And I guess like, because I'm just scrolling through your work sometimes, and I can see that you also do a lot of photographs, and this is the sensibility that you can express yourselves in many different ways. It doesn't need to be just painting, drawing, photo bashing, 3D. It can be also photography. It can be like sculpting. It can be putting things from the like Pepsi cans or whatever. Basically, just something that you can express your sensibility, your artistic sensibility, right?
That's very good to be able to know different tools. You have like different arrows, different bows, different strings, and you can play with that. And I think it's very good to be able to explore different techniques. And when I learned 3D, I was really fascinated by the fact that you can create a scene. I was doing some modeling with my father, but actual models, like planes and
physical models.
Physical models.
Yeah, I love them. I still make them. It gives you so much. It gives you so much knowledge. Cool.
Yeah, and that's also because it was before knowing 3D, but I think it's almost the same. I don't know how you feel, Michael. I think it's the same kind of feeling you have when you deal with 3D.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
And texturing, lighting, and if you know a bit of photography, you can deal with lighting. And I was really fascinated that you could do something in wireframe, and then you have to wait for a few hours, and then it's just alive, coming to life. So you bring something to life through a actual, sketch in 2D, and you extrude volumes and shapes, and you deal with lighting, and you can change different cameras angles. So that was eventually something I did at the beginning when I went to the animation school in 3D, and then I started as environment artist for video games in 2001, and that's how everything started with that.
Awesome.
Nice. How would you say your transition happened from a 3D artist in the beginning to a concept artist, or was it like from 3D artist straight to art direction? But we all know you, of course, from your beautiful paintings, compositions. So how was that professional transition? Like, now I know that you liked photography, so you had that compositional mind always in you. But as a professional, you were a 3D artist first. How did you transition to become a concept artist and then, I guess, an art director? How did it happen? Was it organic? Was it something that you strived for
that's a good
with
question.
full conscious, or?
Oh, yeah. That's exactly what you were mentioning at the beginning. Was it luck? Was it work? I think it's a mix of everything. So I had this idea in 1999. I was one of the few people to have an online portfolio, and some people would tell me, "Raph, what do you have a portfolio online?" It's like it's fucking useless. Like, is it like so? Are you so selfish that you want to have a website just for yourself and showing your stuff? No, I'm not selfish. Just like a virtual gallery, you can show your stuff, and you can, it could be shown worldwide.
Look who's laughing now, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I was building this website when I was still environment artist working in France for video game. The company was called Callisto. They made Dark Earth, Nightmare Creatures. It's very old games from the late 90s. And I had this website, and someone from Ubisoft Montreal found me on this website. Actually, he found my stuff interesting because I was trying to do renders in a soft image 3D, renders of this kind of Arabian Nights feeling. So I have this, Moorish architecture with, Arabian landscapes and lightings and. Actually, it was the creative director from Prince of Persia who saw my website, and
nice.
then so he called me and reached out, and he was like, "Oh, would you like to move to Montreal?" I was like, "Oh, I'm good in France. I love France. I love my country, the wine country. Beautiful rolling hills with vines and
oh, it's beauty, yeah.
It's I like the.
But Montreal is kind of like an extension of it, no?
It's nice, but it's Americanized France, sort of.
It's actually really North America. You can speak French, but it's a different culture. It's a different kind of landscape culture. Everything is different. So when you arrive, you speak French, but it's like if you were speaking the same language in your country in Europe, and you arrive in a country speaking the same language but a very different culture. So.
I see. Yeah,
you have to adapt, and eventually I said yes, and we moved to Montreal, and it was an amazing experience because they had me as a lead artist on the game and then as art director. So it was
so that's
massive,
like from day one with Ubisoft, you had this high position.
So it's actually, and it's really thanks to the website and to the image I had on this website, the image I have put online. Now it's really difficult to stand out and to shine on ArtStation. There's so many great stuff.
There's a lot of stuff, but at the same time, there is also many more projects, many more studios, and even like Ubisoft, right? Look how many like re-branches they have. Like in Europe, they have different studios. That in Canada, they have in Singapore. So there's like a lot of more opportunities. Even though we see it's gradually like the number of people who are interested in what we do is growing basically day by day, right?
Yeah, exactly. And actually, it's really about, you were talking about luck. It's luck, but also you create the luck. You create the opportunity.
Exactly.
And that's very right what you said. That you create, you increase your chances to be lucky by making a website, by exposing your work. By being proactive, being always busy, curious. yeah, so
Well,
that is
but
kind of
that's also on the other hand, when you are lucky to be in that position, you have to keep proving that it's, you know, that you are in the right place at the right time, because there are sometimes there's like that might be like a lucky shot, but if you don't prove your skills, or if you don't prove your, maybe not skills, it's, the skills can be actually shaped with time, but it's more
Yeah.
like your motivation and how much you are driven to succeed. If you feel you just moved the countries, you just moved the ocean, and you just basically move all your life there, and you sacrificed, you know, like just to be there, and you prove that you were in the right position, then you gradually became like you know, more rooted into the team. And as you said, you became like a lead artist and art director. And was it already on the first Assassin's Creed, or is it like still on Prince of Persia?
Okay, so that's also a good question, because eventually from art direction in games, so on Prince of Persia, I wanted to have a different experience. So I worked for the actual pre-render cutscene department we had in Montreal, at Ubisoft Montreal. So before dealing with the Digic Picture, you know, in Budapest, we used to do in-house all the cutscene. So I was really interested to know how to do matte painting, how to do concept art for narrative moments cutscene. So I became the cinematic studio art director at Ubisoft Montreal. So I left the video games to work on cutscene. I did the cutscene for Prince of Persia 2 Thrones, Warrior Within. And eventually we won even a VES award for 2 Thrones, which was like really cool. We went to Los Angeles. We had this award along all these people coming from the film industry. It was really an amazing moment. It was in 2006. And then I came back to video games as a production art director on the first Assassin's Creed, because there was a few people before me working on the conception of this game. Nicolas Quentin, Céline Terrier, a few guys were doing the art direction on the conception of the game. And eventually I took the production because I had eventually more experience. So I took over for the production of the game. And so I did a few concept art for Assassin's Creed. So that's why you can see a few of the first one in my book, and also in the making of and all these the artwork from AC. And eventually, so that's when I came back as a production art direction. And then, as you know, I left Ubisoft. I went to Rodeo FX, working as concept artist,
Yeah,
and also
you
matte
were
painter
for film, right? But it was like how long was this? Like, because I think it was just like a little like effort in your career that you just flirted with, like other sort of like a branch of our industry, and then came back as a brand art director, right?
Yes, yeah, that's the exactly the story. I really wanted to learn more stuff from the senior people of the film industry, because I was feeling I was a bit not really evolving, learning new stuff in the game industry, working on games and open world games. I really wanted to be challenged in a different way. I wanted to be a good matte painter. I wanted to become a good concept artist. So I wanted to learn next to people like Mathieu Reynaud, Yannick Dussault, all these reference for me. And luckily this guy, they are from Quebec. They're from from Canada, and they left Canada to work for ILM, for Weta Digital, and they came back to Montreal eventually to open this visual effects company, which is like really awesome. So for me, it's an amazing memory. It was a very small studio. When I came there, we just were, I think, 12 people. Now they grew up to 300 people, I think. So it's becoming a big industry.
What the movie was that you work on? Can you maybe just remind us?
Yeah, I need to remember. There was Death Race, Terminator Salvation, a couple of movies. Yeah, back in the days. It was an amazing experience. So dealing with making concept art, I was also working on Immortals 2011. This film was also very interesting because we had to go to LA for a month, and Mathieu eventually stayed more to work on the pre-conception. So I would say like maybe when you have to create the universe before getting all the subsidies and getting all the budget to actually do the conception. So I was involved into that, and it was really exciting to be next to all these very senior people and learn how to make a conception on a movie as well.
So and what was that step that you sort of like came back to Ubisoft again, and then you just became like a brand art director from the very
when you left, did you say to Ubisoft like, all right guys, I'm gonna try something else and I'll be back, or did you say to Ubisoft, look, I'm going, that's it? Like, it was a normal resignation, or was it like a resignation of I will be back with more knowledge and skill?
Actually, they asked me, I remember the meeting we had, they would ask me, oh, Raph, is there anything we can do to keep you? And I was, no, nice. There's nothing you can do to keep me. I want to learn new stuff. I want to have a different experience. And at this time, it was not a question of money at all. Actually, I was having a bit less money than I had at Ubisoft. But the question was really about, okay, I want to learn how to do matte painting and concept art with these amazing people from the film industry, and I was really happy about it. But 2 years after, so I still remember the question you had. I was feeling it was a bit too technical. So that was the issue I had, because when you create a universe for a game, you have a lot of constraints. You have to deal with gameplay. Making a game is a democracy. You have to deal with technical constraint. You have to run real time. You have to be 60 or 30 frame per second. You have to run on platforms. But you can create a whole universe. You can create characters. You can create full environments. It's incredible, to be able to create everything from scratch when you make a game. When you work on a movie, you have a plate, and you have to, depending on the matte painting you have to do, don't get me wrong, but sometimes you just have to replace a sky. Sometimes you have to create a reveal. You have to create an amazing establishing shot. You have to do everything in 3D. Could be amazing. But most of the time, I would say like maybe 60% of the time, maybe 80% of the time, it's okay, get rid of these cables in the background. We have to make it feel like it's the 1920s. So change the car here and, modify the signs on the building and make a night shot of the day shot. It's very technical.
It's also like because they shoot the movie and they have their own constraints from the very beginning. When they have like a green screen or when they use like a existing assets. I remember when I worked on Maze Runner and they used Vancouver as a base for the whole city. That was basically CG. They put the CG over the existing city. So you already, even though you had like some artistic and design freedom, you already had some constraints because, for instance, the way the streets were built were actually dictated by the real city. So I guess I guess your point, because in the end, as you mentioned, the game, and we all worked on some games so far and in the past, and still we do. I guess there's like also the way that you build everything from scratch, as you said, and everything has to be designed because you can actually interact with most of the objects or most of the characters in a game. So it also brings you like additional freedom to explore things, right? And for the movie, for instance, you do like one specific environment, and maybe you don't even show the whole design of the building you do. You just show only the small crop of that, and you basically see that maybe 1 second because it's like a fast forward like shot, and it might be even motion blurred, So that's the funny part there. That's the joke you always have. Okay, I'm thinking about painting. I'm working on it for 2 weeks, and then it's out of focus. That's amazing. Yeah, exactly, and that's also the differences that we have in the same basically industry, but we work on totally different projects, and sometimes you end up working on like architectural projects. You sometimes work on just like a keyframe for movies, and then you work on like world building for a game. So this also shows you that there is like always plenty of opportunities, and at the same time, sometimes maybe you just want to have like your mind reset and you just pick up different projects. As you said, you wanted to have like a fresh air again, but at the same time you wanted to have like this artistic freedom. So you just basically came back. And maybe let's continue with when you came back and how it actually did progress, or they just, oh Raf, we need like a brand art director and you will be there. You will be art director for the whole brand. Like how actually did it happen? Because I think this is something that people are very interested in.
Exactly, yeah. I am interested in that story.
Okay. So I wanted to come back to video games because I was feeling there was more creative freedom in video games, and I was working on a game that was canned, unfortunately. So it was a really cool thing. It was a new thing at Ubisoft, a different brand, but it didn't work out. So they were still making AC games. They were making AC Brotherhood and AC2, and so I came back on Revelation at this time, and they were like, "Okay, Raf, we have this new DLC." It was actually a DLC at this time.
Nice.
We were working on a small game. We have 10 months to work on it. It's AC Revelation. It's based in Istanbul. We're making Constantinople. Do you want to jump in? I was like, oh my God, yes. No, fucking Istanbul. I want to create this city. It's an amazing city. And eventually we spent 10 days in Istanbul. We went there to, shot photos, take pictures, record sounds.
Nice. So the whole concept art team, or just execute higher up?
Three people from the art team, two guys from the audio team, and I think maybe one narrative director, something like that. A few people, and we shot videos, we took sounds. Amazing food, incredible food there. I love the city so much. Went to Galata, we went to all these beautiful surroundings of Hagia Sophia. Went inside of Hagia Sophia, Topkapi Palace, and we had long evenings there. It was really, really cool. Very good times. And it's also very important because when you create something, even if you don't recreate, one for one, the city, just feeling the mood of the place and recreating that for games is amazing.
The sense of place, basically, right?
Yeah. And actually, this small game became a real game. We didn't have amazing Metacritics, but it was made in almost like 10 months.
What year was that again?
It was, I would say 2010, 2011, maybe.
I think.
2011, I think.
It's Revelations,
something
right?
like that. Sorry?
Revelations.
Right? Yeah. Revelations. And, this small game eventually was really beautiful, and the people from AC3 working on America and the American Revolution were looking at this small game from the corner, and it looked really cool, and maybe Raf could help us to do a pass on the lighting and a pass on a composition on the other game. So, and I was also jumping on a Black Flag on this really cool Caribbean setting for AC. So I started to help a few different AC team at the same time, while being also focused maybe 80% of the time on one game. So I would be on Black Flag and helping Rogue, helping AC3, and eventually we decided that we need to make it official. So I became the brand art director for the franchise, because I was also dealing with all the merchandise, with the art books, making selection of the artworks, and deciding on a lot of stuff on the brand side for the visual part of it. So that was a challenge I took. So it was actually pretty cool.
So how did it actually affect your art making in that time? Because people who are becoming like art directors in studios, they usually complain like, oh, there's less and less actually practical work going on. We have to direct people, we have to manage meetings and all of that, and how it actually reduced the amount of practical work you did, especially when you were juggling 2 or 3 Assassin's Creeds at the same time.
Yeah, but that's a very good question. Actually, the job of an art director, and I would say even junior art director, not only a senior, is evolving through time, and the challenge you have is very different from the conception to the production and delivering the actual product, the actual baby, put safely the baby to bed. It's really like really starting as building something from scratch. It's like like raising kids. You don't have the same challenge when they're babies. They don't know how to talk, and you have to do a lot of things for them. And then at the end, you have to deal with the attitude they have when they're teenagers. And it's the challenge of being parents is different from the age of the kids, and that's the same with the actual product you work on. At the beginning, you're just dealing with a few people defining a universe. You just dream in colors. I'm going to make everything I want, reinvent the sky, the clouds, the architecture, and everything. And then you have more like the reality check of, okay, it has to be playable. It has to be fitting in a game, in a massive production. So we have also budgets, but we have to make sure that everything is fitting on the box, but also is fun to play, as an interesting narrative, and the art is part of this adventure. So conception, just making beautiful sketch, beautiful drawings, trying to sell the setting and the characters to the HQ with a Bible. That's one of the biggest challenge you have as an art director, because you have to sell the IP. If it's a new IP, it's even more challenging, but you have an established IP, it doesn't mean that you don't have any challenge, because even working on AC, there was, a challenge to sell the Industrial Revolution in London. Then we went to a full massive open world of recreating ancient Egypt, then Greece. We had Paris. Everything is different. It's always a different universe, and the challenges are completely different, from recreating a city, from recreating a whole country. It's not the same challenge you have. And with natural environments, using procedural tools, Houdini to create forests, to create rivers and lakes, and so it's not the same challenge you have from a production to another one. But just to come back to the challenge you have as an art director, production is something you want to make sure the baby you design at the beginning as sketch and drawings is still respected in 3D, with the lighting, with the gameplay. So it's more meetings, reviews, being, the safeguard, being always there to help people, to inspire people, but also to make sure that you put out fires all the time to make sure that you keep this original vision. And then it's time to close, the project, or making sure it's going to fit on the final shelf, and it's going to be playable and fun and run, with the proper FPS on the platform. And this is where it's a new challenge, because you have to deal with cuts, you have to deal with reorganization of the team, you have to deal with a lot of different stuff that could be really frustrating, but you have to be strong. You have to be there just, from the beginning to the final, to the end. So I would say it's an amazing adventure, but it's very demanding, and it's a huge challenge. Some people will literally melt down, being an art director and going through some productions and some issues you can have, because you're very passionate about what you're doing. And it's also very frustrating to work in an industry with a lot of different challenge, So you have to be sensitive, yes, because you're an artist, but you also have to be really realistic, and you can reality check and make sure that you always have this kind of level-headed attitude to deliver the final thing.
Do you have your favorite part of the process for each of the production? Maybe we don't go into specifics of what you are working on right now. Of course, it's NDA. But do you have your favorite part of the process? Is a pre-production, or just photo hunting? And are you still going to those places, to Egypt as well? You have to be always on site?
No, we don't go always on site. We were lucky to go on a few locations for different games. We usually do scouting trips, not all the time. I would say, for sure, that's a very good experience, because you get inspiration from there. But it's not vacation. It's not vacation, because you have a schedule. You have to wake up very early, record sounds, take photos, classify all the photos. We have an insane schedule of trying to visit everything, to see everything, to make sure maybe a week or 10 days when you can back, because we all have families, so we're not going to live for a month. So we try to live for maybe 8 days to 2 weeks, and come back with the maximum inspiration we can have. So it's very intense, pretty tiring. And then when we come back, conception, that would be maybe the first thing we do. And that's my favorite, phase, conception, working with the illustrators, concept artists, finding people, maybe work with some freelance and do some research. That's maybe the best part for me. Yeah.
Awesome.
Shall we run some, because we discussed it before we were running the session.
Yeah.
I know that Lacoste's face is extremely beautiful,
that's
and
what
we'd love to watch it. But shall we run something that we Heineken?
Nice. We don't have webcam, but we actually have some really good stuff as well
this is
here.
water.
No.
Okay.
Really?
Okay, officially, right? But it's just
officially.
Yeah, but we just asked in the chat that if people want to see your time lapses, so maybe you can play some. What about the birdhouse? I guess this one is pretty cool. Do you want to do you want to play from the like mid section, so people can actually see that?
Oh yeah, you can go ahead and play that.
Okay.
Beautiful.
I'm gonna speed it up a bit and just put it on my screen.
So Raphael, when you mentioned, for example, taking, the responsibility, how, taking care of the project, there is, you have to be sensitive as an artist, but very critical meetings and such. How many artists do you work with? And as an art director, is it only concept artists or also technical artists, environment artists? And what do you like, except for managing those people, you of course make your own work. So as like a franchise art director, what kind of people do you manage, and how much of your time spent is managing people versus you creating your own works?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say during conception, I'm trying to balance that maybe 50-50, doing some illustrations myself, and spending a long time looking at reference and inspirational books. I will be also managing the illustrators and concept artists. So I'm sharing my time between doing some stuff, doing some illustration, but also dealing with the management of concept artists and also 3D artists who are making the benchmark we need to actually sell the project. We need to have visual benchmarks in 3D in the engine to be able to sell that to the HQ. So it's pretty important to create this visual benchmark, not only as illustration, but also to show that it's actually doable in the game. So that's what I'm doing. If you talk about technical directors and technical artists, I would say I'm not directly managing these people, but I would be, as the art direction would be the client, for the technical directors. So usually they need to help us. Sometimes, it's not only the case, because they also have to set up constraints and make sure everything is, running real time. And they would get very, they sometimes are really upset about the use of the budget we have and the way we use the triangles. We use maybe the overdraw and all these technical stuff we try to deal with. So they have to share this time between being the policeman for the game, and at the same time also being here to help to raise the bar and raise the visual quality.
Nice.
Just we look into the chat, and I think there's some really cool questions popping out. And of course, for people who are watching us live right now, please feel free to post some questions that we can ask to Raphael. But I think this one is really brought my attention from Andre Peles. I hope I'm saying the right this name. I would love to know more about how the video game production flows from keyframe paintings to callouts and prop design sheets. I think this one is really, really, really good, I guess.
Yeah. But I would say there's an evolution also on what we're doing, because at the beginning, when we try to explore exploration, it's not about making actual prop design and precise, sheets for different assets in 3D. We're making more exploration and trying to sell a setting. So it's really high level. And I would say maybe on the franchise like Assassin's Creed, because we deal with some reference and we do a lot of concept for the mood, for the composition, for the way we'll be doing maybe landscapes and also city design. We don't need to focus on details. It's really about the high level direction. And the way I'm doing stuff as well in my direction, it's not very easy because, you know, artists and 3D artists really like to spend a lot of time on details. But usually I try in my direction to be more high level. I try to, as much as possible, to give a direction that is more like about the global, like the composition, the mood, the atmosphere, the way we deal with colors and shapes. But it's not about details. Now, if you were talking about someone who is more art directing a new IP, like maybe a sci-fi universe, you have to design everything from scratch. And when you have to design everything from scratch, you need to have these design sheets and have, you know, very precise blueprints of everything. You know, for instance, for character design, when we were working with Jeffrey Simpson, that was really, you know, really cool times back in the days on Origins. His design are very loose. You know, you can feel the brush strokes, you can feel, you know, the materials, but it's very high level. It's more abstract in the, you know, in the details. We don't need to have that much details to explain to the modeler how it works. But sometimes it's too abstract, so you need to come back and do paint over and, you know, give reference. But it's not like we're dealing with new kind of materials, new kind of design. For instance, you have a robe, you have different kind of leather pieces, and you know, it's a knight. It's a different kind of archetypes. But we have some. We can figure out, okay, because is it a Middle Age? Is it from, you know, ancient times? We have also some ideas of in the, like, you know, global consciousness. We know a bit how it looks. So we it's not like sci-fi and making something exactly from scratch when you need to go through details.
Like your games are usually like history driven, and you have those places. And I remember when we were talking about you know, this sort of stuff at the time when I had a chance to do some stuff on Syndicate, and you guys were, you know, like developing the London, and of course it had sort of like constraints in a way that everyone knows how the London looked like, and during the Victorian you know, Industrial Revolution times. But you still had like some freedom to exaggerate some shapes or exaggerate some buildings, just to make it, you know, just to tweak the reality to make it more interesting, basically, right?
Yeah. And actually, you worked on Syndicate. Did you do some stuff for them?
Yeah.
I've seen some really cool stuff, and it's I was not full time on Syndicate. I went later to work on the lighting, and I would say Syndicate and Unity were very challenging for the art directors, because yes, you have to deal with the reality, and you have to deal with people who know very well the city, and people who take a lot of photos and would make comparison with the game. I would say for me, it's not the best part. It's not my best memories of AC. My best memories of AC were when we have to play with history, when it's so blurry, yet you can really create from scratch something like, you know, Caribbeans, recreating Nassau, recreating Kingston, creating all the setting for Black Flag. There's almost nothing left from this era, so you can really create something with imagination and a few reference. On Origins, we really, you know, give life to a few cities like Memphis, Corinthia, even Alexandria. These cities you don't see anymore how they look. It's just like hypothetical research, a few, you know, engraving somewhere, and you can really create with some, you know, some discussion with some historians, because we were super lucky to work with Jean-Claude Galvin, who is an historian, but also he's a watercolor painter, and he's doing amazing recreation of ancient Egypt. So that's super inspiring for us. But at the same time, it's like we're creating something. Nobody will, you know, go to Memphis in Egypt and tell, okay, it's not the right temple. It doesn't look like what it is. You know, it's you don't get the comparison about, you know, the game is not real like the reality. And I think when you're making a game, when you're making a piece of entertainment, you want to create something that is helping you to escape from the real. You don't want to get always compared to what is the real world.
Okay, awesome.
Nice, beautiful explanation, man. I think you're even sharing so much knowledge. If people are not watching, they're missing out a lot, man.
Totally.
Oh man, yeah.
Nice.
Michal, we have also like
you need to punish these people.
Okay, we have some more very interesting questions. So if you don't mind, maybe we can pick it up from the chat. And in the meantime, we of course can still see your beautiful demo. And just I guess we can appreciate that Raphael wanted to share it with us, which actually is also bringing the topic of you doing tutorials, right? And I wanted to also share your Gumroad page because you have plenty of process videos. And guys, I'm gonna drop the link to the chat right now. But for now, there are like two new questions. So maybe one I will pick right now, and the second maybe Mikkel want to pick it up when I will be managing the chat. So the first one is I actually start with this one. I think this one is cool. How do you find freelancer, or do they find you?
Good question. Usually, I would be following people on Instagram. I would be following people also on ArtStation. Mm-hmm. There's some people I just know already, and I would say it's always through websites. Sometimes it would come, with people I have the chance to meet some people during events. Like it was very sad that this year IAMAG was canceled. I was supposed to go there, but because of the COVID situation, it was canned. But I was really lucky to meet a few inspiring people. These events, so it's a mix of meeting real people, like you guys, working with some people in house, because it's pretty rare that we hire freelance people at Ubisoft. It's pretty difficult because of all the NDA situation. Yeah. But we're trying more and more to hire freelance, and I can't really talk about the upcoming gig I'm working on. Hopefully, I will be able later, maybe this year. But it's we worked with a few of really amazing people on character design. So yeah, it's I would say like it's people I follow on Instagram, people I would follow on Twitter, and I would like to try to work with them. Yeah. Sometimes it's coming also from recommendation, because I'm like you guys, I'm really into environment design, looking a lot of traditional painters, and also people doing digital environments. So I may be a bit less into character design. So sometime I would have some suggestions. I will ask to my friends, okay, do you know a very good character designer who maybe has been working on movies and who's not maybe really famous, but I would like to know if you have a website, a link for me. So it could also connections.
Awesome. And do you have, like, when you look for, because you just said that you are scrolling through ArtStation, you follow people on Instagram. Do you have like some specific, like, besides like, okay, those people know how to, for instance, do like environment design, but besides that, do you have like specific like criteria that you sort of like follow those people? Because of course, when I look at ArtStation right now, there's like plenty of people are doing the same thing over and over again because they saw it somewhere. Or they, replicated someone else's technique, and I think, what's in how we can actually, let's dive into and try to immerse ourselves and seeing it from your point of view, basically.
That's a very good question, actually, because you can have a beautiful page with beautiful polished illustrations, but can you design? It's all about the question of And if you can design your stuff, but can you design the stuff I ask you to design? It's again like another like layer of challenge. So usually when you used to work with someone who really knows your taste and knows how you work, it's really, really easy because you can really iterate and have a lot of proposal during the day, and maybe in 2 days you have a final design. But when you have to deal with a freelancer, what I'm looking for is really people able to create something from scratch. So I'm not maybe following people who are doing amazing, highly rendered illustrations and really, really detailed, because I think sometimes details kills the information and kills the original intention. So I would look for people, able to to go into abstraction, sometimes just show just simple shapes and silhouettes and be able to show dynamic poses for the character design, and able to do maybe more polished illustrations. But I'm not looking for a marketing artist, I'm not looking for this kind of, this stuff you would see like Boss Logic is very famous, but that's for me that's more marketing illustration. It's not about
design
character
part,
design.
yeah.
And same would say for environment design. Some people who will be doing a lot of photo bashing could be really good at composition, but some people can be very weak at composition, and they can make amazing images using photo bashing and 3D. But at the end, if the composition is not working and is not readable because there's so much information in the image, it's not working. And I've been personally working on that for years. I know I'm putting a lot of details in my image, but I'm trying to have, even if we have a lot of details, have a readable image. And that's exactly what you're doing also, Derek. You're doing amazingly immersive, detailed image, but you can read the image like in just a glimpse of an eye. You can really get immersed in the universe. And that's something, that's a skill not a lot of people have actually. And I think it's experience, it's practice. But the question is not to have a portfolio that is a showing off portfolio of technical skills. It's really, okay, what's your sensitivity? What do you have to say? And are you able to answer an actual, an actual like a task, a request? And when you have a brief, if you have a brief for like a story, an environment, or for a character, like you have a bio of a character.
Yeah.
I give you a few reference. Can you give me something that, someone who would be like really memorable, who would stand out? I want to play, I want to discover in the game, So yeah.
Thank you for answering that question. Thank you for your great words as well. I think this is something that we also bring up a lot, because I don't want to just shit about anything or anyone. I just feel like many people these days are actually trying to replicate someone else's workflow or technique, because this is how I myself, if we teach at school, I don't ask, we don't ask our students to do, this exact same way as we are. We are actually more like, try to, understand things that the way that we explain it to you. And then you move your own brain to start thinking on a totally different level, because people who are just, for instance, scrolling through our portfolios, and, if it's like your portfolio, it's like a lot of also beautiful, keyframes and, illustrations, but they don't know that there is like plenty of like behind the scenes problem solving, right? And there's like a lot of like design thinking behind that before you even do those illustrations. And the thing is that what I'm getting my point to, I think it's rather just putting the technique over the practicality and actually the function of the image. I'm not talking about the functionality of the world you build, because it also has to play a role, but also what is your purpose of doing that image? Is it actually something that you mentioned just to show off your technique? Yeah, well, but this is just a technique that someone already showed you, and you of course assimilate the technique, because I guess this was also one of the questions that I wanted to ask you, how you are staying relevant in the industry. You are I don't want to say, but you are older than us, and you are definitely much longer in the industry. So I wanted to ask you how to stay relevant for seeing from your point of view. But at the same time, I see people are really having a misunderstanding of what the concept art is these days. Like this is like where then heading them. Just doing beautiful pictures, and it's like I have like some people just messaging me like, hey, we have like I did this and this work, and I just look at it through the portfolios, like, yeah, this is a lot of beautiful stuff. And they ask me like, oh, but why I'm not getting hired? The reason is like, maybe you are just replicating someone else's work, or maybe you just don't have original ideas. Because I see this, futuristic cityscape, or this, I don't know, like, castle over and over again. But when you do the castle, or for instance, Sparv do the castle, I know immediately that it's yours, because this is like how you guys have to, work on top to shape up not only your technical skills, but also your visual language, storytelling, your design sensibility, the way you pick up the subjects, right? And this is such a vast topic. We could just talk about it like for ages.
Yeah,
but
it's a pretty vast topic. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's what we observe, and we have plenty of like portfolios reviews that we have to do for people who apply to Focal Point, and we see those people are making the same mistakes over and over again. So maybe just not to, like, you know, continue this topic, maybe just cut it right now, and let's maybe go back to this question: how do you stay, and how did you stay relevant for so many years in that industry?
Oh, you mean how I'm not after 20 years in has-been? You want to...
No, because, you know, when I talk to you like 4 years ago, the excitement level is high, you know, equally high. And when we met last time in Montreal, you were also excited. You know, we don't need to talk about art only, but, you know, the way that you perceive what we do, the work, the passion, it's still reflecting through your, you know, through your the way that you are. And I just wanted to, you know, see how people who are like in their 30s or 40s or 50s, and even we who I'm late 20 but getting into like 30s, like don't get burned out, and they stay relevant, not only because of the technique but also the way they are still hyped about what they do, I guess.
Yeah. But that's it could be a 1 hour talk. Like, it's super interesting. I would say maybe something very simple. Stay true to yourself. What you know makes you the artist you are. So, you know, for instance, I have a very good friend in Scotland. His name is Ian McHugh. You might know the guy.
Of course.
He was living in a small town near I think it was an arsenal, or maybe like they had a lot of shipwrecks there, rusty boats. So why the guy is now painting flying, you know, rusty boats? Maybe that's also because he had this connection to this kind of universe. He's not trying to mimic someone to do as someone else would be doing. He is doing like he is himself, you know, when he's painting that. He's just true to himself. I was living in Bordeaux. It's a place where there's a lot of medieval castles. I was always fascinated by the ruins, by the lights on the ruins, and playing, you know, taking a lot of pictures in these places. I was even like doing urbex and exploring this castle at night. And so it's when I'm painting a medieval scene, it's not because I'm trying to do as Craig Mullins is doing, or because I'm trying to do something like I know it's going to be impressive and epic. It's more because I'm really in love, really interested into these kind of settings. And also, as you were saying, staying relevant after all these years, I would say it's because I need it. It's something. It's almost like breathing, like drinking wine. I need that. I need to spend time, create some, you know, meaningful stuff. And for me, it's creating universe. I'm always fascinated by the creation of universe. I'm not interested in recreating exactly the real stuff from the real life. I'm interested in creating universe and exploring stuff. And also because I don't have a lot of free time. I have a lot of time in my mind to think about, okay, I have a dream of this universe I'm going to do. Maybe in 2-3 weeks, or maybe in 1 month, I'm going to make this image. So I have all this time, you know, of maturing, like I have this kind of the time of, you know, digesting the idea, the concept. And when I have 2-3 hours in front of my computer, I know exactly what I'm doing. So that's also really helpful. And keeping always the challenge different. So, you know, some people would make some joke, oh, Raph, you're the master of the castles of, you know, this kind of master of, you know, this kind of medieval epic castles. Like, oh, you know what? It really upsets me. I'm going to do a sci-fi scene. You know, next one is going to be a sci-fi, you know, environment. And then, okay, let's go for a sci-fi scene. And it takes some time, some stuff as a challenge. I'm going to try to push myself to learn new stuff. So coming back to 3D, playing with the lighting, shape design. This is what we're checking now. It's a sci-fi scene. So I'm blocking shape in 3D, going into Photoshop because I have the vanishing point. I can now design shapes. And I know pretty much what I'm doing because I've been thinking about this image for a long time. And it's a mix of 3D and new techniques. And for me, it's also challenging myself in, you know, new process. And I think this is all also you get always relevant because you're trying to always challenge yourself and see what you can learn. I'm not learning the new software because I'm already using a lot, 3D Max, and I think it's a very good tool for what I need. I could learn new stuff, but yeah, I can do lighting, I can do 3D, I can texture stuff. So maybe it's not relevant for me to continue learning new 3D software. Maybe I should. Maybe I'm too old for this shit. I don't know. But it's I think it's great. And after doing a lot of environments, I wanted to do aircraft and spaceships. And I've been trying
man,
lately.
your last series is amazing. It's maybe we can also bring it up on the screen after the demo is over. But I think it's like what we can take from what you're talking about right now is basically like pushing the boundaries, like pushing the boundaries for all of us all the time. And we do the same, man. It's like for instance, when we talk with Mikkel, and when we met and we kept in touch for many years, and when we started like the school and we started teaching, the methods of teaching drastically changed when for me personally when I started, for instance, interacting with him more in real life, because we knew each other for many years already. But for instance, I started to draw much more just being around this guy, and this is something that you also say about like Ian and his boat series. I'm living in a town that is like very heavily old town driven. So it's like a lot of Baroque architecture, and there's a lot of cathedrals and like Romanesque stuff, and Gothic and all that stuff. So that's probably why most of my portfolio before I even get a job was basically full of like Gothical stuff, And this is what happens when you are interacting with either the person or the place. And that way we got inspired even subconsciously. We don't even think about it. We just do it because we feel that, we are basically part of that social life, So
that's exactly what you say. Yeah. Go ahead, Michael. Go ahead.
No, sorry. It's what Darek said is not only inspiration from your environment, like you said, with castles and ruins.
Yeah.
Darek with his old architecture, because now I also live in Gdańsk. It's beautiful here, and that is one thing. And the second part is, of course, surrounding yourself with like-minded people, but not exactly, like Darek, for example, very specialized in his lighting, architecture, learned tons from him. And I was always, a nerd about tanks and military stuff, and that is normal because I grew up in a small town at the coast. Northern coast of Holland, and it's nothing but farm fields and sea and flat landscape and cows. But there is a military base, and there was a military show every year of the Marines, of the Navy. So as a kid, I was like inspired seeing these armored vehicles, tanks, helicopters, and that also made an impact on me. So it's environment and the people. Sorry, your turn.
No, but I mean, it's what you say is like super interesting. It's very true, and I think if you stay true to yourself, you're going to do amazing shit. I mean, it's because it's meaningful, and you get the right inspiration. You're not trying to mimic someone or to do as someone, or to because it's cool to do tanks, or because it's cool to do planes, you're going to do that. No, you're good at doing that because
exactly
it's your universe. It's your universe.
Sorry for cutting in, but I think that just something that when we were talking it just resonated from my brain. When I was starting out, I remember when I was inspired by this or that person, and I did the same thing because they did, and I didn't do it because I felt it. Until at the moment that I started doing what I really like, or what I really appreciate, and what I really appreciate in terms of like what I'm surrounding myself with, or what topic I'm really picking up. Before that, you don't really feel that, So you have to find this specific, it might be the moment in your life, it might be the thing in your life, it might be the person in your life, but something is gonna change. And then you got like really inspired, and then you keep on going. And then, for instance, I can tell, this is Raphael new work, because I know already what you are standing for. Even when you do your space ships designs, it's a totally different image than what Mikkel would do. And I can tell that what Mikkel does and what you got, what you, Raphael, are doing. So that's because you guys have been work on your own, on your own taste, on your own design sensibility, the way you present things. And this is what I guess we can also recommend to people who are watching us. If you are struggling with how to really get into, or maybe how to get inspired, or maybe even how to be happy with what you do, because just be honest, right? We cannot really tell everyone who is, for instance, coming over to the school, or they are watching from online tutorials, will get a job at all. Maybe at some point they will understand this is not something that they are really wanting to do in their life. However that sounds, it might be the true, right? So I guess that's all about when I look through your, for instance, history and your career, it's like a lot of devotion, a lot of sacrifice, at the same time a lot of motivation. You have to be motivated and very driven to do that, right? So this is this is one of the things that is indispensable basically in what we do in this field, because even though it might look like a dream job from outside, if you sit on your fucking ass for 300 days a year, and you have you have to also take care of your health, because this might be fucked up very, very soon after you start sitting for a prolonged period of time. And you will see that is it really for you or not. Are you able to adjust your life in this way that you can actually continue doing that, or you are basically as driven to really keep on doing, right? Because there's some life questions that you will be asking along the way, and I guess maybe some maybe motivational basically words from you would be also good. Maybe you have some specific routine. You were talking about your books that you have. Maybe you want to share something with us. Maybe something that would just give people some more motivation, hope, and I guess the stuff that we see on screen already is super motivational. But maybe someone is watching us muted. I don't know.
But actually, I really like what you said about doing something not because you find it cool, but it's because you feel it. And I think that's really key. What you just said about that, it's you do something because you feel that thing will make a huge difference. When you talk about also passion, passion can be amazing because you can get so lucky to do a dream job in something that is really a passion for you, but it can be at the same time, as you were saying, your worst enemy, because it's a passion. You're getting very touchy, very sensitive about what you're doing. And if you get frustration, if you get a very difficult challenge, because it's a passion, it's going to hurt you even more. So you have to know that it's not like a life of unicorns, being an artist and working with the entertainment industry. It could be a dream job, but it could become quickly a nightmare if you get to deal with very frustrating moments and you don't know how to deal with these frustrations. So you have to stay really level-headed, and that's what you need to learn when you deal with the real job that is also a passion for you.
Awesome. Beautiful. Yeah. Out of respect to you, Raphael, how much time do we have? Because just our quick art talks are not as quick.
We could go over and over, but we just want to
because there are some questions. I would love to go over them, but please let us honestly know how much time do you have? 10 minutes, 20 minutes?
We can have 20 minutes, so we end that. It's 6:30 for me, and for you guys, It's pretty late. All right. What time is it in
10 minutes past midnight. That's all right.
Oh, guys, you're artists, night birds.
We're fine. Nocturnal creatures, don't worry.
Yeah, nocturnal creatures.
Yeah.
Nocturnal animals.
Sorry?
Nocturnal animals.
Yeah, night owls, I am. Vampires, you know the drill. There was one person asking, I'm sure there was a question like that, but I have to scroll up. But I think it was a good question. You as an individual, every time we meet, we speak, and Darek also told me about you, how chill and relaxed you are and down to earth. That's a very good quality, I believe, in people to have. But that comes with with your, like, how did you build up your character over the years that you are so chill and relaxed? Because, like, I mean, you come across as chill and relaxed, and the question was, how do you deal with stress? And I imagine with the job title you had for responsibilities, there are times of stress, like you mentioned earlier. So what is your remedy?
I know what you mean. I think I learned with the years how to deal with the stress. I'm a nice kind of character. I don't have a bad temper when I'm coming to stressful situation, but I take it on myself, and it can also hurt. So I'm trying to work on that. It's I need to be level-headed, and I've been working on that for years. That's why also sometimes when I'm in a really too stressful situation, I'm not trying to stay there for too long. I'm trying to escape and do something different. Escape is not a solution, but I would say it saved me a few times to escape from really stressful situation. When I'm really not feeling okay with the people I'm working with some people, I have to deal like a really bad influence people. I'm moving on. I'm leaving this kind of group. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So that would be because I don't have this kind of really fighting temper. I'm not the kind of people who is going to go in heavy fights and be aggressive and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So I'm trying to be surrounded by inspiring people, nice people who behave nicely. And sometimes when you get stressed, you have to evacuate. But I like when people do that with a level-headed situation, level-headed behavior. Yeah. So I would say it can be difficult on yourself. You need to take time for yourself. So that's why I'm doing some personal stuff. I'm going on very long hikes, meditation. What you can do sometimes, just good party with friends, wine. I know COVID situation is not really helping these days. Watching,
we're gonna make up for it, man. Definitely, when this shit is over, we're gonna definitely meet up again and have like a great time, as we had actually. I really have really great memories from last Montreal time, and I think we had like definitely time to remember.
But something you need to also do when you are a leader, in the industry, maybe a lead artist. Yeah. You have to be to be level-headed. You have to be able to manage your temper.
Totally.
And I would say like naturally, because I'm not someone who can really get aggressive with the social situation. I think people like also to work with me, and that's also part of the success. Like when people like to work together, when people like to spend time with you, because if you're an amazing artist but you have a shitty temper, people would just want to leave you there and fucking like leave the place. Like,
totally.
So
it's the same that part of the on the business side of things, when we, for instance, sort of like came up with the idea of like having the school, and we of course had like a good, very grounded friendship, but like there's like plenty of examples when the friendship actually can collapse because of the business you guys you do with someone. But I think it's like even when we are totally different personalities, we know when to meet at the point where we agreed on things that we either incorporate or the things that we do as an endeavor, and we just basically take it as a thing that we have to do, and this is our obligation. Mm-hmm. So with the moment you have that, and your position, your sort of like place, and what's your area of managing, I guess. This is something that you maybe learn on the go, and maybe you learn that with time. But I guess this is how you basically create like a business or environment to work of like working environment, which is basically, I don't treat my job as a job, basically, right? And I hope it's gonna stay as long, even though it's hard, it's tough. I'm not saying it's easy. It's tough because of many. Of course, we have like. I'm not gonna complain, because we, in the end of the days, we do just pictures that don't really change. They don't really save people's life. Maybe they change some lives in a way that they can interact with the characters or environments. But we don't basically save lives as doctors, right? We are not on the first and on the first line as some of the doctors right now that are fighting the virus or other really terrible obstacles in life. But at the same time, we have a lot of things that we have to consider, like your mental and physical health takes a big role in all what we do, so we have to be aware of that as well. But at the same time, as you said, be level-headed is something that I guess we all three can agree. It's something that you just practice for your whole life, basically, right? Because I remember when I got my first job, I was like, oh man, I already felt like I'm so awesome already. But it disappeared just like that after a while, because you understand that, oh man, you still know shit, right? You still know nothing. And that thing, when you start learning, and when you actually let it go, that you know that you always have something that you're gonna learn or you have to improve, that way you got much more happy in what you do and with your life, and you don't treat the job as a job literally, right? You just treat it as a part of your journey, because I don't work 8 hours a day. Sometimes I work 20 hours. I work 15 hours, and no one is counting that for me. I'm not even counting that for myself. But I don't really treat that. Oh, this is my job. I have to wake up. I have to do this shit, and it's done. No, it's not like that. You wake up. You might just take a couple hours of different duties or activities, and then you just go back to draw, and then maybe you do some professional work or personal work, and then you just don't really feel an obligation to call your job a job, basically, right? I don't know if that makes sense, but that's how I see that.
What I would say to maybe very passionate and junior people I have in my team, because they can sometimes get really stressed about some deadlines and some frustrating situation you have, because when you work on a big production, you of course have constraints and stressful situation when you have to deal with the art and design, and when you have bugs and you have to debug the game, but you have a very small deadline to respect, and sometimes the stuff is not working as you would like. They get very stressed out, and they just think about that, and they just focus on the problem. But I would say, as you were saying, we're not saving life, and we really have to make put everything in perspective. We're making beautiful image, we're making games, but it's still useful to people, because for a time like we're living now, with the COVID situation, people stay at home and they can really escape in VR games. They can spend time discovering new universe, and they can really immerse themselves in a interesting experience and beautiful games and beautiful movies and interesting stories. So I think we're not useless. We're very useful for people, but Absolutely. Then you have to really put things in perspective. When we really get stressed about the job we have, no, we don't have a job like people, saving kids from cancer and people, fighting,
totally.
on the field.
Yeah, very beautiful words. And maybe since we are really heading over to 1 hour and 20 minutes, you showed us some books before we started the session. Maybe you want to bring that up, because the screen is locked on you right now, so we can see your face. You don't even know that. I guess you don't even know that for more.
I see that, but there's a huge delay, so I'm a bit messed. When I'm looking at the screen, I see myself 10 seconds after saying the thing, so it's a bit confusing.
So maybe let's go into like inspiring part of your journey, basically. What inspired you? What art books you use, or what books or what documentaries? So whatever really just brings yourself and new ideas.
Yeah, for sure. So I can show you a few books I have. I was always inspired by photography. I was taking, a lot of photos when I was before going to the fine arts and even before working in video games. So I think there's a lot of inspiration to take from the work of photography, taking photos, going outside, spending time in different places like, cities, but also natural environments, and find inspiration in the lighting, the composition. There's a guy I really like. He's a Canadian guy. He's Edward Bertinsky. So this guy is taking photos with a medium format camera. So it's a very, very large negative, and it's helping to get highly detailed image, not like a digital camera would do. It's almost like the resolution of a huge painting. And what I like is that it could be like a very common thing, like a landscape, industrial landscape, like this kind of old refinery. But the mood, the level of details you get there is really, really impressive.
The depth as well. The depth as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes just pipes in a factory, but the way it's taken in the photo is bringing all the vertical rights. He's spending a long time working on his composition. So I really like this kind of it's not urbex. It would be like it's an official urbex, but I really like the way he's taking his photos, and it's really about dealing with composition.
It looks like one of those like Soviet factories that Mikhail's mech would be manufactured.
Oh yeah.
Thanks, man. It's a compliment. How about Derek? You make an environment like that, and I'll make the thanks for it. Huh?
Let's do it, man.
And then Raphael can be the
art director.
How good it is.
Oh, okay. I can do a pass of lighting if you want.
Yeah.
You all know Moebius for sure. Yeah. This French comic artist. So for me, he's really the master of drawing of the line. And I've been really inspired by all this stuff. I think it's amazing in terms of just the way he is dealing with the hatching. I think we all try to do this kind of hatching. It's so beautiful and so precise, and for sure.
Like a printer.
Always dicks.
Like intertwined with each other.
Intertwined, yeah. And all this universe, this very strange universe and creatures. I really love his stuff. Actually, I don't know for the people who had the chance to get my book. I don't have any more prints. Maybe I will do a new print session of this one.
You should. But is it castles or worlds?
This one is a line. It's just black and white sketches.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's just thumbnails, sketches, and stuff like that. Studies. And I really wanted to come back to natural, traditional stuff. I don't know. Like I have a few. I've seen a few French people are listening to us now, but so they know Régis Loisel. He's an amazing French comic artist. So yeah, that's La Quête de l'Oiseau du Temps. So amazing comic. I can send you the links if you want after.
Absolutely.
He's also one of the best inspiration for me. And also, this guy, Steve McCurry, American photographer. Steve McCurry, very famous. So it would be National Geographic. All his photos are just incredible. Just watch these photos.
Yeah, this looks like a painting, basically.
Yeah. So that's why it's that the way he's dealing with the situation, the lights. Every single photo he would be taking is like a painting.
Nice. Awesome.
So Steve McCurry is for me is one of the most amazing, and he's going in always super inspiring locations and finding the proper lighting, and so you guys have a check to these guys. I can send you the links later.
Totally.
Yeah, that will be lovely, because what I find very unfortunate is that, like Derek said earlier, a lot of people have this misconception what concept art is. They go on ArtStation, they see a pair of boobs with a chick with a gun, they see some couple of environments, very tight, very photographic, and then boom, that's what they think what concept art is. And you showing your inspiration, the photos, and I saw even some abstract ideas like those line drawings, like some crazy wings, some crazy compositions from a variety of different photographers and artists. That I think, I hope that you guys watching this really now have an idea, because I think Raphael is sharing here a lot of knowledge, a lot of insights, how his brain thinks, that everyone has his own creative way to get inspired. So don't only look at other concept artists, don't look what's trendy right now. Because guess what, Lacoste over here, he was not looking what's trendy. No, he did his own thing, what he said. And of course, it's hard work. It's maybe now easy to say for him because he achieved it. But it's perseverance, hard work, I guess. Of course, a little bit of luck. And then really staying true to yourself, what he said. And just this, like how he is even like the way how you show these books, with enthusiasm is just beautiful to see. So yeah, strong message to everyone out there that is, serious about concept art. It's not enough to just like video games, be a fan of Assassin's Creed. You have to be very curious about the whole world, and every artist has his own reinterpretation, how they showcase and communicate aspects of our real world.
Yeah.
So
very well said, man.
I think
thank you. I'm trying.
No, but you brought really good point. You have to be passionate about things. Like when I look at your works, for instance, Mikko, everyone can just at the first glance can tell you are passionate about military or tanks or vehicles, and this is definitely reflecting through the works. And I think, and I do hope it might be said about all of our works here, right? That we know our like strong parts. We of course want to, as Raphael mentioned many times today, level up or improve on specific things. But at the same time, we have our own little corners where we find ourselves the most enjoyed doing art, basically, right?
Yeah. And actually, what you were saying, we shouldn't copy a concept artist, an art station. It doesn't mean anything. I think we're just going to follow the trend, and we won't learn anything. But you can copy the masters, just to learn how to deal with the basics. And I would say it's not bad to copy someone like Vermeer or copy someone like Rembrandt, or trying to mimic traditional painters, and maybe also
or someone like Lacoste,
maybe not. Don't try that. But it's now when you're getting into the fun arts, I think it's getting very cheesy when you feel this kind of fun artsy execution. It's always like really bad. But you can't have this kind of fun artsy execution when you study in master, when you're trying to study how Vermeer or Rembrandt are dealing with light, or even Caspar Friedrich. When I was studying 3D, I was really copying Caspar David Friedrich, because I was blown away by his sense of composition on atmosphere, and I wanted to recreate that in 3D and see how it could, what kind of impression it could give in 3D. And it was pretty successful. I did some tests. I recreated the Ardena Abbey in 3D, and for me, I was inspired by an oil painting by a traditional painter and trying to bring that in CG, and it was a very good process. Mm-hmm. So I think learning the basics is good. If you want to learn how to draw like Moebius, go ahead, man. Go ahead. Yeah. Good luck.
And that's a very good point what you're saying. Yeah, it's always good while learning. It is always good to look at the right source of inspiration. Try to do a master study. Yeah, that is also what we do at school. We look at the forefathers and the fathers of concept art, like Sid Mead. We make studies of that.
Exactly.
Yeah, we look at concept. Sorry,
Michael, what you were saying. Yeah, what you're saying. It's exactly that's good. You go to the source. You don't copy the copycat. You copy the original.
Yeah.
And the other thing is like maybe just to sort of like wrap it up. I think when we talk about the sources, and I observe that like across the years, what really helps when you get inspired by different sources at the same time. So you stimulate your brain not just because of one artist or one specific hero you have and you want to follow. Just feed your brain with different inspirations at the same time, and then you will find your own little corner, basically. Like that's what worked for me, because I was also in the moment that I was sort of like stuck being inspired just by specific artists, and then I started like expanding my horizons, basically. Maybe not intentionally. I just started just basically looking up different artists. And then I discovered totally different worlds. And then you sort of like get your own little point when you really get headed over and you just find your inspiration getting and having all different resources at the same time. They are meeting at the right place at the right time. And then you just basically follow that, or you expand from that point, and then you start creating originality. You start creating original stuff, and then you basically express yourselves as your own. Basically, you build your brand, expressing yourself, so people can associate your work with yourself, right? Yeah. We all don't want to just be like guy like, you know, like Mr. A or Mr. B or Mr. C. You know, we all just work with around our own, you know, areas, and we of course try different things at the same time. But I guess building your image, your brand, your persona, your presence online is something that will definitely stay there even when we are gone, basically, right? So I would rather be remember as Darek, or not like just another, you know, maybe Darek that was before me or whatever, you know. So the same I guess we can definitely tell about our today's guest. I think your work speaks for yourself. You know, when I go to ArtStation, I of course follow you, but I don't need to just go into my notifications because there's like so many notifications. And then when I go to like, you know, Instagram or trending on ArtStation, I can, oh, this is Raphael new work. I'm just clicking, liking, that's it. You know, that's what I can really tell, that the work speaks for yourself. We don't really need to show our faces to just, you know, be associated with our works, basically, right?
Yeah, that's a very good point. I think like even for people to try to stand out on all these, you know, this wave of inspirational of all concept arts we see on all these online medias on Instagram, ArtStation. If you really want to stand out, it's like always this stuff we're coming back to, being true, staying true to yourself and have a true personality. And that's really something that is going really to stand out in this crowd, in this mass of images, of very well executed images. If you want to get a job, you need to stand out. You need to be, oh, that's the guy I know. I've seen this guy already. I know his stuff. I like this kind of mood and composition. I think it's this guy. Okay. So you get this kind of signature. And when you get this signature, you can really stand out. If you just follow the trend, you're going to be lost in this massive wave of, you know, a crowd of
copycats, basically, right? So
yeah.
Awesome.
So it's a challenge.
I guess we can, of course, I guess, be all very happy and thankful for this session. We spent like 1.5 hours.
Thank you, guys.
Raphael. It's been amazing, and that, you know, the way that you shared also your insights and, you know, your works, your time lapses, it's amazing. So we would love to thank you all on behalf of people who are watching us, and hopefully, man, we can do something like that in the future again. And for all people who are watching us, please subscribe to our channel. Please share the word about this podcast. I think this specific session is so good to rewatch many times. So guys, please you know, share it with your art friends, share with your you know, in art groups. And I guess amount of information here has been huge, and basically such value in this 1.5 session been great. And I guess thank you, man. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for the invitation. Cheers, guys.
Cheers. Awesome to have you. Really inspirational, and like Darek said, very valuable knowledge together with those beautiful video tutorials. So I would like to thank everyone. Sorry that we were not able to attend all the questions. It was pretty busy. But more sessions to come, of course. Don't forget to check out Raphael Lacoste's work. We'll be sharing his Instagram, everything, his gumroads. He has on his own a lot of in his arsenal to share. So again, thank you, and thank you for watching as well.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Raphael.
Thank you, guys. Take care, guys.
Take care. Stay healthy.